Have you ever wondered who's behind the success of some of the greatest FPS games of all time? If so, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll dive deep into the life and legacy of Vince Zampella, the mastermind who revolutionized the FPS genre. Sit back and relax and get ready to learn more about one of gaming's most influential creators. If you're a casual gamer, you may not recognize the name Vince Zampella, but I can almost guarantee you've heard of or played his games, from Medal of Honor to Call of Duty, Titanfall, and most recently, Apex Legends. Vince Zampella has had a long and successful career in the FPS genre. Not only is Vince Zampella a highly talented game developer, he's also a visionary who changed the way we play and experience FPS games. His innovations have set new standards in the industry and influenced countless other games. Understanding Vince Zampella's story helps us understand the evolution of FPS games. Great companies are built by great people. It's the individuals who bring vision, passion, and innovation. That's why, if you're trying to understand how or why the FPS genre is evolving, it's crucial to look at the individuals within a company, not just the companies themselves. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you to support my channel by liking and subscribing if you enjoy this video. I post videos about FPS games and news. I also live stream regularly on Twitch. Growing up, Zampella considered himself a gamer. He loved board games, pen and paper RPG games, and, of course, video games. Notably, he stated he would spend hours playing Donkey Kong. When the opportunity arose to work in the games industry, he took the opportunity with both hands. Zampella began his game development career with GameTech in the 1990s. GameTech was the company that developed and published games such as Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Zampella worked as a producer, customer service agent, and games tester, a jack of all trades. Moving on from GameTech, Zampella moved to Atari, working on their Jaguar games, working directly on NBA Jam and Supercross 3D. While working at Sega, Zampella worked on a shooter game called Vigilance. This was both a third-person and first-person game, and it was Sega's first 3D shooter game. Although this game was met with mixed reviews, it was praised for its creativity and large variety of weapons and features. Zampella's time at Sega was not only influential because it was his first experience working on a shooter game, this was also the time he first met Jason West. Although only acquaintances at this time, neither knew just how significant their future partnership would be for the gaming industry and the FPS genre. In 1999, West was a lead developer for 2015. He convinced Zampella to join 2015 as a lead producer. Zampella led the team on Medal of Honor Allied Assault. Allied Assault released in 2002 and is perhaps the most significant historical shooter game ever released. The game was published by EA and it was exclusive to PC only. The game's levels are often compared to Steven Spielberg's 1998 film Saving Private Ryan. Did you know, speaking of Spielberg, that Spielberg led a company called DreamWorks Interactive around the 90s? DreamWorks Interactive was the video game division of DreamWorks, the film studio. This was the development studio behind the first two Medal of Honor games. In 2000, the company was acquired by EA and renamed to EA Los Angeles. EA Los Angeles would go on to create Medal of Honor Frontlines, another classic FPS game. This was the first video game I personally ever played, and it was the beginning of my lifelong obsession with World War II history. The game was released to universal acclaim. It received a score of 91.5% on Game Rankings and 91 out of 100 on Metacritic. It was a massive success. It won numerous awards such as PC Gamer's US 2002 Best Action Game and Computer Gaming's World's Action Game of the Year. When speaking about Allied Assault and its success, Zampella said the team at 2015 wanted to take something with historical context and bring it to life. They wanted to make the world believable and immersive. The success of Allied Assault was immense. Other game development studios were watching closely. Around the time of Allied Assault's release, Zampella was accused of conducting secret meetings under 2015's nose. It was alleged that Zampella was conducting secret meetings with the objective of leaving the company to form a new team. This was alleged in a lawsuit against Zampella by 2015 CEO Tom Kaderka. In 2002, amid tension internally at 2015, Vince Zampella made the decision to leave and create his own studio called Infinity Ward. Zampella was not alone and was joined alongside Jason West. In fact, all 22 developers who worked on Allied Assault were now working at Infinity Ward. Zampella would take on the role as Chief Creative Officer. EA wanted to continue building on the recent success of Allied Assault and wanted to create a sequel. Infinity Ward, a new studio which now consisted of all the developers who worked on Allied Assault, were the obvious studio for EA to work with. However, EA wanted to pull Infinity Ward into EA and work in-house. Infinity Ward wanted to remain independent, so EA attempted to strong-arm the new studio. As a result, Infinity Ward said they no longer wanted to work with EA and ultimately decided to work with Activision. What happens next might be the biggest fuck you in FPS game in history.
They go and fucking ruin everything they're doing. Fuck them.
The following year, in 2003, Call of Duty was released to the world. Infinity Ward called the project Medal of Honor Killer, and kill it did. The game was released exclusively for PC, and once again, the guys over at Infinity Ward created a great game. The game received critical acclaim according to multiple reviewers. It also won multiple Game of the Year awards for 2003. This was only the start for Call of Duty. Following on from the original COD, in 2005, Infinity Ward released Call of Duty 2. However, this time, the game was launched on PC and console. The game was a launch title for the Xbox 360. It is estimated that 77% of users who owned the 360 at launch also owned COD 2. Bringing the Call of Duty franchise to console was hugely important for the game's popularity. Once again, the game received great reviews and was the most popular launch title on the Xbox 360. Computer Games magazine called it the ultimate World War II shooter. So what does Vince Zampella specifically have to do with the success of the early Call of Duties? Well, as Chief Creative Officer, many of the new features to the game which would go on to become staples in the franchise were added. Call of Duty 2 was the first time the health regeneration feature was added, as well as a nearby grenade indicator. We might take these features as staples now, but believe it or not, these were revolutionary at the time. The game also put a heavy focus on the frames per second aspect, specifically building the game to be 60 frames per second, which was unusual at this time. FPS competitors on consoles such as Halo and Rainbow Six were running at 30 frames per second. The game was run on a custom-built engine created by the developers at Infinity Ward called IW Engine. The IW Engine was a modified version of the Quake 3 game engine. Call of Duty 2 pushed the boundaries of graphics, sound, and gameplay, creating a new standard for the FPS genre. Activision knew they were sitting on a winner, so they decided to partner with Treyarch to develop Call of Duty 3, whilst Infinity Ward were developing their next installment for the franchise. Call of Duty 3 was released in 2006 and was once again a success. It was one of the highest selling games at that time. However, it wouldn't be until the next installment in the franchise by Infinity Ward that the Call of Duty franchise would be propelled to unprecedented success. This is where shit really starts popping off. Call of Duty 4, released in 2007, is widely considered one of the greatest video games of all time. It was the top selling game worldwide in 2007. Unlike previous installments in the franchise, Call of Duty 4 was not set in World War II, but rather in modern times. Vince Zampella and the team at Infinity Ward felt strongly about transitioning the game away from World War II and moving it into the modern era. Initially, Activision pushed back. They wanted to keep the game in World War II, but eventually Zampella's team convinced Activision to trust them. Imagine Activision didn't allow Infinity Ward, and specifically Zampella, to move the game into a modern setting. The franchise would probably not have ever reached the heights of popularity and success it currently enjoys. Zampella and the original Infinity Ward team were not only talented game designers, they were also visionaries who propelled the Call of Duty franchise into becoming a $1 billion company and a household name. So why was Call of Duty 4 a classic? The campaign was great and memorable, but the success of Call of Duty 4 can be credited to the multiplayer. COD 4 introduced radical new features for its multiplayer mode, such as create a class, the perk system, kill streaks, and levels and progression. Players could level up and unlock new weapons and perks for multiplayer. These features are now synonymous with the Call of Duty franchise and staples in all future installments, but these were revolutionary at the time, and we can thank Zampella and the original Infinity Ward for these innovations. In 2008, Treyarch released World at War, the fifth main installment in the Call of Duty franchise. Unlike Call of Duty 3, Treyarch now used the Infinity Ward engine instead of their own. They implemented all the features Infinity Ward created, such as progression, create a class, perks, and kill streaks. Treyarch also began innovating the franchise, with this game seeing the beginning of Zombies mode. For the purpose of this video, I want to stay focused on Vince Zampella and Infinity Ward. It was Infinity Ward's vision and introduction of features into the multiplayer mode that truly grew the Call of Duty franchise. Around this time, it's now 2009. Call of Duty is now bigger than ever before. The pressure is on. How do you top Call of Duty 4? How many ideas and innovations can Zampella and the Infinity Ward team create create and implement without bursting the envelope. Modern Warfare 2 didn't do anything dramatically different to COD 4. The campaign was continued, the multiplayer added additional gun attachments, different perks, and more kill streaks. The main theme of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was even provided by Hollywood composer Hans Zimmer. The game was a blockbuster success. The game became more Hollywood, more explosions, better sound, smoother gameplay. The total revenue from the first day sales in the US and the UK alone was $310 million, making Modern Warfare 2 the biggest entertainment launch in history at that time, surpassing revenue of its previous holder, Grand Theft Auto 4. As of January 2010, it had taken in over $1 billion in sales. Activision also claims that Modern Warfare 2 had 8 million players online within the first 5 days. I don't want to move on with you thinking that I personally think the game was perfect. It absolutely wasn't. It certainly had problems, as did all previous installments. In multiplayer, the overpowered 1887 akimbo shotguns and the one-man army perk with noob tubes was fucking stupid like. But overall, I think the game was great, and it was truly Infinity Ward and Zampella's vision that made Call of Duty into the blockbuster success it is today. Call of Duty was now one of the biggest video game franchises of all time. So what happened next? Surely Infinity Ward and Activision were laughing all the way to the bank. But behind the scenes, not everything was as good as it seemed. What happens in March 2010 will go down in history. Infinity Ward co-founders Vince Zampella and Jason West were escorted out of the Activision headquarters by security after being fired for breach of contract. This is just months after the release of Modern Warfare 2, which generated over $1 billion in revenue. So what exactly was going on? Why would Activision fire two of the most important and influential people? Well, when Infinity Ward was formed and left negotiations with EA, they decided to partner with Activision because they wanted to remain independent. But what actually happened was Activision purchased a 30% stake in Infinity Ward, and this contract included a sneaky loophole. This meant that if West and Zampella were fired, then Activision would retain the rights and royalties to the Call of Duty franchise. Zampella, West, and the developers at Infinity Ward wanted royalties due to the massive success of the Modern Warfare series. Activision wanted a sequel, obviously, because it was making so much money. Infinity Ward also wanted complete control over the Modern Warfare sequels. They wanted quality control to be completed internally at Infinity Ward, meaning that Activision executives could not play the game until it was released. Activision wasn't willing to make any concessions, and ultimately they fired Zampella and West. A few days after Zampella and West's dismissal, Zampella and West began a lawsuit claiming that Activision owed them royalties. Activision countersued, claiming that Zampella and West were planning to defect to a new studio funded by EA. Activision claimed that Zampella and West were self-serving schemers. Lawfare between both parties was in full swing, with lawsuits after lawsuit after lawsuit. The legal action spiraled into a bigger battle, a battle for control of the first-person shooter market, which has now become a multi-billion-dollar business. In 2011, Activision filed a $400 million lawsuit against EA, Vince Zampella, and Jason West. West and Zampella were accused of conspiring with rival game publisher EA to help with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's biggest rival, Battlefield Bad Company 2. Vince Zampella was accused of consenting to a delay in the stimulus package DLC for Modern Warfare 2, which was requested by DICE so that their game Battlefield Bad Company 2 would have more attention at its release. Activision also accused EA of trying to steal the Infinity Ward studio, accusing Zampella and West of meeting in secret with EA. I think it's important to note though that all accusations made by both Vince Zampella, Jason West and Activision are simply accusations. I cannot either prove or disprove either party's claims. Former Infinity Ward member of staff Paul Sandler wrote an article on LinkedIn about the day Zampella and West were fired. In this article, he states that Activision told employees of Infinity Ward that they would only receive their royalties if they stayed with the studio, and if they worked on Modern Warfare 3. They would receive a 50% salary increase. The Activision executive went on to say, "Look, I get it. I know this is a tough situation, but just take the money and get over it." What do you think happened between Zampella and Activision? Do you think Activision were withholding royalties and refusing to pay Infinity Ward staff? Do you think Zampella, who had previously left EA, was meeting with them in secret? To be honest, the whole story is complicated, and both parties are being accused of multiple things each. Let me know what you think happened in the comments below. Eventually, the lawsuits were settled outside of court. Activision ultimately agreed to pay the pair, that being Zampella and West, $42 million, in addition to an out-of-court settlement believed to be worth tens of millions of dollars. This was all settled behind closed doors. After Zampella and West were fired by Activision, in 2010 they created a new studio called Respawn Entertainment. Over 40 developers from Infinity Ward left and joined Respawn Entertainment. The remaining Infinity Ward developers worked on Modern Warfare 3, Ghosts, and Infinite Warfare. Ironically, this is the period of Call of Duty where things started to go downhill and the franchise lost its own identity. Modern Warfare 3 was great, but Ghosts and Infinite Warfare were definitely downgrades from previous installments. This era of Call of Duty was definitely kept alive by Treyarch and the releases and innovations of the Black Ops series. So what exactly was going on at Infinity Ward? The only notable innovations in either Ghosts or in Infinite Warfare was the slide seen in Ghosts and the jetpacks in Infinite Warfare. Jetpacks were introduced to Call of Duty originally by sledgehammers in Advanced Warfare. It is obvious that the creativity and vision from Infinity Ward was gone. Actually, while we're on the topic of jetpacks, why did jetpacks and advanced movement even become a thing in COD in the first place? Well, we'll come back to this. In 2014, Respawn Entertainment released its debut game, Titanfall. This game was published by EA. Activision claimed Zampella and West were planning to work with prior to being dismissed. When Zampella left 2015, after the release of Allied Assault, he was in fuck you mode and set out to destroy Medal of Honor. However, Zampella claims that when he was dismissed by Activision and he was creating Respawn, he wasn't seeking to destroy Call of Duty. Zampella stated that he views Call of Duty as his game, his baby. He didn't want to see it die. Instead, he wanted to move on and create something new, something different. After messing around with various prototypes, the team at Respawn decided to create Titanfall, an entirely new IP. Titanfall 1 was released in 2014, and unlike Zampella's previous games, this game is set in the future. The selling point of Titanfall was its advanced movement and its titans. The game also introduced entirely new features, or made previous features seen in other games more popular in the FPS genre, such as maps with both players and AI bots, wall running, jetpacks, and even executions. The game definitely shook up the FPS market, and the game received a score of 86 on Metacritic. In 2016, Titanfall 2 was released. Respawn wanted to improve upon the first game, but for some reason, EA made the decision to release Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1 around the same time. Titanfall 2 received a score of 89 on Metascore, and it was considered a great sequel to the original Titanfall. However, the sales for Titanfall 2 weren't as good. Titanfall 2 failed to sell more copies than the first game. Regardless, the Titanfall series is loved by many of the players who played it, and its focus on movement definitely forced other FPS games to focus more on it. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the first game with jetpacks in the COD series, was launched a few months after Titanfall. Do you think COD were looking at the innovations in movement made by Zampella and Respawn and decided to introduce advanced movement such as jetpacks into their own series? Was this an attempt to compete with Titanfall? I tried to research this, but there isn't a lot of information on why COD introduced jetpacks. Anyway, for the sake of this video, I don't want to keep it too long, so I'm gonna move on from the Titanfall series. Titanfall was loved by the community of players that played it, but unfortunately, it wasn't selling enough copies to keep EA happy. Respawn knew they needed to change focus. The team loved the Titanfall universe, and they wanted to keep building games within it. In 2017, Respawn Entertainment was acquired by EA, and its first game since the acquisition was about to be released. 2 years later, in 2019, Respawn released Apex Legends. The game was announced via a YouTube livestream. The game had no prior announcement or marketing, and it came out of the blue. Battle Royale game modes were growing in popularity at this time, with PUBG, Fortnite and Call of Duty's Blackout all being very successful. However, the only true first-person shooter battle royale game at this time, which was created by a AAA studio, was Blackout. Respawn focused on making a battle royale game mode set in the Titanfall universe, while EA made the decision to release the game as a free-to-play title. Apex was a massive success and was almost instantly one of the best battle royale game modes on the market. The movement was fluid and the gunplay was solid. Just 8 hours after its launch, Apex had over 1 million unique players. Within the first 24 hours, the unique players rose to 2.5 million. This number then rose to 25 million within a week, and within the first month, it had over 50 million unique players. The game made $92 million in revenue within the first month. This is the highest amount ever earned by any free-to-play game during its first month. The popularity of Apex even caused the largest growth in stock value to EA since 2014. By 2022, Apex Legends had surpassed over $2 billion in revenue. Vince Zampella's influence on the FPS genre was monumental. His work has not only set new standards, but has also inspired and shaped the direction of countless other games. From his early days with Medal of Honor Allied Assault, where he brought historical authenticity and cinematic experience to the forefront, to the groundbreaking innovations in the Call of Duty series, Zampella has consistently pushed the boundaries of what FPS games can achieve. Whilst not all features and innovations currently taking place in the FPS market are liked or appreciated, I think it's important to recognise that developers focus on making games, and oftentimes it's the publishers that make executive decisions that tarnish the developer's reputation and limit their creativity. Zampella's legacy is not just in the games he helped create, but in the standards he set and the inspiration he provided to other game developers. His vision for immersive, dynamic and player-centric FPS games has left an undeniable mark on the industry. Understanding his contributions gives us an insight into the evolution and future of FPS games, highlighting the importance of visionary individuals in shaping the paths of entire genres and franchises. If you enjoyed this video, please help support me and my channel by liking and subscribing. I also would like to hear your thoughts on anything I mentioned in this video. This video took a long time to research and make, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.
Durka Durka.